Listen up.
Welcome to the PowerShell Podcast, the podcast for PowerShell and the PowerShell community. And now, here's your host, Andrew Plaw.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the PowerShell Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Plaw. You can find me on socials at Andrew Plaw Tech, and we have a very exciting episode for you today. I am joined by friend of the podcast. Man, I feel like anyone who's on socials and that part of the PowerShell community is familiar with either seeing PowerShell Young Team or seeing Steven Wight. Welcome to the podcast, Steven.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for having me on. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to meet you finally, because I genuinely see you like in my brain, sees your little profile picture at least once a week for a long time, whether that's showing some support my way or engaged in the community in some other way. So is this kind of your first time speaking in more of a public part of the community?
Definitely in the PowerShell community, yes. It's the first time speaking. I usually hide behind my spray painted logo and on social media. Yeah.
But you have a blog.
Really done user groups or anything like that. If I do, I tend to hide away in the background and ghost it.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I notice here you're more quiet, but whenever you comment or say something in chat, I can tell that you actually are in here using PowerShell every day and following along with the community pretty closely, which is pretty cool. And you have a blog, 4 blog posts. That's more than many.
Quite light.
But why did you get started with the blog? Where'd that kind of come from? Just seeing everybody else in the community get down with it?
Yeah, and it was kind of along the lines of some things advised to me. There was a point where I was I'd been looking for a new job, and I went for an interview, and I was really struggling to get across what kind of things I'd done with PowerShell. And I kind of came off that the guys didn't seem very impressed. There was a few comments and things like that, and I came away and I was a bit like, need to fix that. And I think it was Brett Miller I was speaking to in a chat, and he advised, get things up, get a GitHub page up, get one of the GitHub pages thing, maybe do a blog, or just at least get your scripts up. And then at the very least, if you're going, you can go, look, this is what I've got. These are the kind of things that I've done. And it could help. And yeah, it did. One of the next interviews, I went and showed a few scripts that I just lobbed up on GitHub. And I got a job interview. Didn't take that one, but it got me the thing. And I felt it's been a really, really big help. So I've started it up, but trying to get the momentum of getting blog posts out or finding things that you think, actually, I think that's worth sharing that no one else has done is a little bit harder. But yeah, it's a good little project. I would advise it for anybody else.
So where are you with your PowerShell journey now? It sounds like you've put in some time, published some scripts, did the blogging thing. You kind of did that initial investment that we love to see and we encourage people to do because it leads to new things. So you're kind of more established in PowerShell now. What are you using PowerShell for?
I try to squeeze it into my day-to-day job. So I think what's my job titles? I'm now an EUT analyst. It used to be a Windows platform specialist, but I work within kind of the EUT side, but it's more, it shouldn't be, but it is a little bit more third line stuff. But also we do things that manage Citrix VDA. We've got a VDI infrastructure that we've just recently expanded, and we also are moving from VMware over to Nutanix, and just basically trying to, any way I can use anything that, any technology we're using that in the ET space that I can use PowerShell with, we're kind of adminning. So yeah, trying to give examples, like with the VDI stuff with PowerShell built for my team. It's a GUI, and basically they can select things. We've created our own kind of standards for certain VDIs, like gold, silver, bronze, depending. One's more powerful, does certain things, and basically I've got a GUI where you can go in and say, I want to build this VDI, name it, where you want to put it, what cluster or whatever, and then you can select whether it's gold, and then you can go in and alter it slightly if you need. But just little things like that, just to kind of, rather than using their web-based one, and also the other thing with that is, if you, obviously I've built a GUI for it, but behind it's like functions and stuff like that, and well, if you can make that accept pipeline input, then suddenly you can get a CSV file and plan out how many VDIs you want to get created, and then fire it at it, and it will sit and create them. So just little bits like that.
I don't know if those are little bits. Just to be fair, I think for a lot of people that would be
rambling on as well about what I'm doing. Sorry.
No, I'm loving it. But you've shown me just in that answer that you're a advanced power user. You write tools in the proper way where like, yeah, there's the GUI element like you're mentioning, but you wrote it in the proper way, which is with functions in the background. You pipe things together so that, yeah, you can put it into a GUI, but also if you know what to do, you can run it yourself. So you seem pretty advanced. How long have you been using PowerShell?
Oh, that's a good one. So when I first moved down, so there was when about the PowerShell 3 would have been after about 2010, 2012. I had a first shot at it, and basically I was in a place and I get given a bit of the dirty job. It was in a desktop team, and it was reclaiming hardware from people that had left. And it was wandering around trying to get it, and it was literally wandering around with a sheet, going to managers and arguing with them because they would obviously want to keep it so they could give it to somewhere else or use it themselves. I hated it. So what I did is we had this list of all the levers. So then we also had the list of all the hardware that I had from an assets database that we had. So I started doing things like mail merges and making official looking emails and sending that to the manager saying, this employee's just left. This is the equipment they had. Can we have it back? And when they seen it from an official looking email, I think rather than me turning up with a list going, can I have this, please? They kind of frightened them a little bit, and we suddenly started getting lots more equipment back. And what I was trying to do, I was trying to get that mail merge. I was trying to also get calendar appointments. I was basically trying to get it so I could get calendar appointments from these, so I could go around and pick up the kit. And it failed horribly. I was trying to get things out of Microsoft Office calendars and stuff, and I failed. It was really, really bad. So I quit. I stopped using PowerShell and thought, nah, this is not for me. I went into another job that was a bit more remote support, kind of doing remote users, and then it was the PS tools, the Sys Internal Suite. Mark Rusevich, I hope I've pronounced that correctly.
Rusinovich, yeah.
Yeah, his stuff, which is our Sys Internals team stuff, which is amazing. That got me I was using PS Exec and then getting onto the command line onto remote machines, and that kind of really opened up a different way for me working as well. Because I'd been used to being kind of a little bit of a hardware engineer. I'd previously been our desk side support, so you were literally going up to people's desks or doing a remote control session like through Microsoft Remote Assist and things like that. So from there, using PS tools, that kind of opened up a different way of working more for the command line. And then I ended up doing a total shift and going to this small company. They sold an energy management system so you can track your energy bills and things like that. But they done everything on the cheap. So everything was headless Ubuntu servers, bash scripts. There was like Unix backup servers, and this is the first time I'd really got to touch anything like this. But it blew my mind because the guy that got it set up, if something went down, you just restarted a server, and then these scripts would kick in, and then you were looking at log files using things like Vim and weird stuff like that I couldn't exit. And then that kind of started opening up my mind really to different ways of working. So when I left that company and I went back to a place that was more kind of Windows, in fact, it was a bank, and it was doing it was an investment bank. It was doing trade floor support for them. It was quite high paced. So when I got back there, though, I was like, I'm not running around desks and things like that trying to see all these guys. So then it was kind of started getting a bit more back into PowerShell. Sorry, I've totally skipped a bit as well. Sorry, after that, I went to another company, and it was we had SolarWinds. They just brought it in, and they asked me to kind of help setting that up. And SolarWinds basically seems to, it's a big scheduled task manager with a database that collects information at the minute, and it fires PowerShell scripts. A lot of the monitors were all PowerShell scripts. If you go in and look at it, you could create your own custom ones, which this company had its own, a lot of its own bespoke applications. So you would create little scripts that would read their log files because there was nothing kind of available off the shelf on SolarWinds. Sorry. So that kind of really started breaking me into PowerShell, but it was more about monitoring, is this machine up, pinging it? Is this web page returning like a 200 code and things like that? Sorry, for there. Then I went to the trade floor support one, But from that was more kind of attacking things like AD, remoting onto the back of machines. Also, because it was back to more doing desktop stuff, when I was on that one with the monitoring, we were building things like web servers. There wasn't many machines. Whereas when I was back to doing the investment bank, doing the trade floor support stuff, there was a lot more machines. So I started then getting more into, as I say, AD. There was a lot more exchange with PowerShell Exchange. Started attacking that, making things that would make like, I was a shared mailbox. We used to always get asked to create mailboxes. So every time a trader had a deal or something, they'd create a special mailbox for it. And you'd get asked. So I created something that could basically feed in the name, feed in the manager, feed in all the users that had access to it and what access they had. What I'd noticed is if you created the mailbox, it wouldn't appear for a while. So you couldn't add in all the users. So I made one that would sit and then try to create the mailbox. And then it would try to, I would try to get mailbox, and then wait until that actually turned something, and then it would move on to adding the manager, adding all the users, just little things like that would kind of help speed up time. And
okay, I have a question
sorry.
though. So
Sorry.
from what I'm hearing, you found a lot of good excuses to use PowerShell to solve problems, like to the point where not only do you know how to write tools, which is a great skill in itself. I think a lot of people know how to write PowerShell, but then having the ability to think about problems in a way that can be solved by PowerShell is kind of a different skill set almost.
Yes.
How did you refine that ability to find solutions that can be solved with PowerShell?
That was quite a hard one, and it's still an ongoing process, definitely. I'm very much everywhere. If you take a look at my GitHub and some of the scripts, you'll see, as much as I talk about these ways of doing things, you'll see it's quite different. But yeah, the process for it, there's different stages, and I think there's different ways to attack it. When I first started, it was just getting commands to run, and it was just trying to get my head around things, and it was using the get help, get member, get command, all those sort of things, trying to get your head around. And even then, I would literally I'd have like PowerShell ISE open, and then I would write the command that would, what I was doing, what I was setting a registry key in value or something, or whatever I was doing. I would get that working, and then obviously you maybe have things hard coded in. Like if I was doing something on a remote computer, I'd maybe have invoke command and then its hostname directly in. So then you'd maybe start thinking about on IC, like you get what you wanted to do. You'd then start creating variables for the things that you had hard coded in. You'd maybe shove that at the top, or get that into an object or something like that. You create a loop for it basically for a lot of things. So yeah, you start getting around little things like that. Once you kind of get your head around that, you learn things. You learn how to put things in a loop. You learn not to hard code things in. All these little tricks, and once you get them, it's then trying to get that into your day-to-day work. Because I've done things, I've read up about a different approach, I've tried things and thought it was really good, and then I've not really kept up with it. And then maybe the next time I went to write a script, I've not used them, or I've reverted back to old ways. And it's trying to get the kind of good habits and good techniques to stick. But when you're really kind of in the early stages, it gets a bit bewildering, I feel. And it's a kind of, sometimes you need to go back and look at what you're doing, or you do it script and go back over and go, actually, did I use the best processes? It's a continuing thing, and it's an iteration thing. As I say, sometimes you need to go back to basics, and then you will see things, or things will click that maybe the first time you just kind of scrape through and it worked, and it was okay, that works. Then you go back and you actually look at it and go, why did that work? Is there a better way?
You know, it reminds me of, I think Snover said this originally, but PowerShell is like an ogre, which is like an onion, which has layers. I think it was Snover. I don't know who it was. But that's true. You know, like you can learn things the first time and get a service level understanding, but the second time you learn about it, or when you go through the process of you have some coworkers, maybe you're teaching it to them, you can kind of really get some more understanding. And I love that process. It feels so satisfying to my brain, at least.
The teaching thing, when you have to show something, and even when I've had the script over and then I'm writing documentation, and then that's suddenly when you ask yourself, as you say, you ask those kind of questions where, or as you say, you're teaching it to someone else and they ask you something, you go, I don't know, I copied it off a blog or something I've seen online and it worked, and I've just kind of done that. I don't actually know. So it does then help you learn as well.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And I think writing a blog, if you don't have coworkers to teach to, is another great way to do that. And I've had a lot of times where the only thing that gets me to stop relearning the same lesson over and over is when I freaking write the blog about it. I'd go through taking the screenshots and linking them and all that stuff. And then maybe I forget it one time, I look at the blog, but it feels like at least there's something tangible and it hasn't just been lost to time. Like so many great memories I have.
Yeah. You go back to something, you go, how did I do that? I've got vague memories. I mean, I think my first blog post was I was talking on, I think it was Twitter or something, and then someone asked how I did. I was getting the password out of KeyPass, and then I was like, well, instead of writing it in loads of tweets, let's do a blog post. That's it, kicked off.
Yeah. And hey, maybe you'll keep kicking it off. Maybe 2025 is the year of the PowerShell Young Team blog. Now, I can tell, and from my impression of you so far, is that PowerShell means a lot to you, and this community has been an important part of your sort of growth as a professional. What have been some of the pivotal moments, or what does the community look like to you? Are you on socials a lot? Are there particular meetups you go to a lot? Do you listen to podcasts? What is the way you consume and interact with the community?
Well, social media's kind of kicked off when I was learning and I was doing things like pulling things off a Stack Overflow. It is very one way, and if you're doing something wrong, you're not getting any feedback from it. So even though, that's kind of, I wanted to grow, and started noticing there was a community on, it was Twitter originally, and started following that. From there, I discovered things like the PowerShell Discord, and started going on there. Again, quite very passive on it, but I'd say Twitter was probably one of my better ones, because people were talking back, or you commenting things, or say, like, you end up then getting direct messages for like Brett, Adam Bateman, and a few other people that I've spoken to and reached out, and that's quite cool. And it's just good to see what other people are doing, and occasionally seeing other people having the same struggles as you. You don't feel so lonely. But it's just a great way to kind of keep on your finger on the pulse and what's happening, and then try to kind of ride off the back of that as well and help you grow.
Nice. You have any goals for yourself in the PowerShell realm? Are you happy with where you are? Are you trying to, one of those people who's like, I need to speak at a conference, or where are you with that?
Speaking, that's a little bit terrifying. But
you're doing it right now. You're doing well.
Thank you. To be honest, I've got met recently. I think I was even in Blue Sky. I think I was asking a few questions around. I was kind of feeling a bit kind of lost in direction. My work is also at a point where they're also discovering where, we're going to go hybrid, or there's certain directions they're not, you can tell they're not sure. So if they've not got a direct direction, usually I would go, right, well, if that's the direction I'm going, I'll start kind of aligning myself with it. So it hasn't been. So I'm at the point where I can make a module. I'm understanding certain things, but I wasn't too sure where to go to next. Like Pester's one of the things that I'm really, in fact, it was shared today, was a blog post that seems really interesting on the PDQ Discord. So that's going to make me another attack at that and try to get it kind of a bit test driven, and also rather than me just having like creating little stubs to test functions and stuff like that, where I'm hard coding what I'm passing in and things like just try to make my life a little bit easier, try to get a little bit more process. We're saying about profiles and things like that. There's been a few talks about them recently, like the one today, and like things like Fred and that's done. Just trying to make myself get a little bit more efficient, get a little bit. There's been so many things. It's like even through like the podcast, discovering things like PS Readline and just little tweaks like that. And
you didn't know about PS Readline before the podcast?
Before, listening to the PowerShell podcast, it was one of the earlier ones.
Yeah.
I've probably got still the notes written down. I was like, what? Like, see the history view with PS Readline, where you can just drop, it shows like the last 10, you start typing in the command and it'll show you like the last. That's great. It saves me hitting the up arrow key forever trying to remember an old command. Yeah, things like that are just like amazing.
Yeah, the PS Readline list view. Yeah. A lot of people love that tip. And that's the importance of community. It's not just the podcast. Obviously, if you're listening right now, excuse me. If you're listening right now, you're already listening to the podcast. So nothing I can convince you to do there. But there's a lot of different ways. And if you can find a module or some kind of solution, saves so much time, and it's fun. I think we had a PowerShell Wednesday today I saw you at where Sam Erdy was talking about profiles, and you'd be surprised how far you can go with just one slight tip here or there.
Mm-hmm. And there was quite a lot of really, really good tips there. I've actually got them written down on a bit of paper in front of me. Yeah.
So you're just always geeking out over PowerShell, writing down new stuff. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, anything that can. It's PowerShell's made my job, all my IT jobs, so much easier than. It's just that way of working, being able to kind of script and automate rather than in GUIs, point and clicking. And I'll make a lot of GUIs, but that's a lot of the time that's for colleagues that. I think initially I tried to make tools and make them all command line and force people to use it, and people wouldn't use it. And then I thought, actually, I'm being a bit jacked. That's not fair. Not everyone's cool with working on a command line. So I started kind of a bit into that. But when you actually have things all based on a command line, you can make and automating things. And when it actually really works and it saves you time, there's a few things that I've automated and work. And when you've clicked that button and it just runs when it was a big manual task. It's a really good feeling, and it's the kind of feedback as well, because I've tried the other things in IT, and you're running off of tutorials, and it's not helped my day to day, and I've lost interest because you're not getting much back out of it. It's probably a really bad attitude to have, but when you're doing something and it's automatically feeding back, and you're seeing the benefit of it, it's a bit hard not to kind of. Give me some more of that. Get ready for it.
It feels like an addictive video game. You're responsible for this thing. You get good points whenever it runs, and you see the green check marks of successful execution of the command, and you get paid for it too. Way more. I pay for video games. I can write PowerShell and get money. Now that is a pretty cool game.
That's it, yeah. And when something works, especially in battling that, I've been in a crowded office and something's completed and it's worked, and I've been like, yes, and punched the air, and like everyone's looking around at me, and I'm like, okay, I'll sit down. But yes, I've been there. I've did that. It's a great feeling.
Why are you so supportive? I guess I should phrase it like this. Thank you for being so supportive. I remember very early on in the podcast days, Jordan and I would always see your support on Twitter. Sometimes we'd tweet something, it would get 2 likes, and we didn't know if anyone was really listening back in those days. And you were always there. And I just want to say thank you for that. But where does that come from?
Well, around that time when you guys were starting the podcast as well, I was kind of getting back. I was looking for more sources of information, and I thought the podcast was quite good. It's sometimes when you're looking yourself, sometimes I don't like to be constantly fed things, but sometimes it is good to just kind of see people and get kind of things, look at this rather than be me sitting down going, what am I going to learn, what am I going to find out, do a bit of research. That's great, but sometimes it is good to just kind of turn something on, listening to it, as well as sitting reading it, because sometimes I've podcast on and I've got to admit, there's probably some podcasts where I've tuned into work and totally missed probably something that was really, really interesting. I'll probably need to re-listen, but it's just the format of it, and then the things you go over, it's just, it's a good source of information, and it's a different way to digest it as opposed to, as I say, reading up in blogs or just directly going out and hunting for it on the net.
Yeah. I agree. I like the more casual conversation where we get those moments where you and I were just talking about PowerShell, and we're purely fueled by happy chemicals in our brain because we're talking about the exact thing that we like. And hearing someone who's passionate and authentic, it kind of resonates. So that's sort of one of the goals of the podcast, is to give people who are interested in PowerShell more opportunities for it to be on their brain and kind of support their growth. Whether the person we're talking to talks about a topic that's relevant to them or not, you can always learn something. So, and I want to thank everybody who's reached out recently. This past few weeks, I've had a bunch of people kind of share some good news, whether shout out Oberon getting tens of thousands of dollars of an increase in their salary from, getting connected with the podcast and implementing a lot of stuff we talk about. it's more than just PowerShell skills. When you're able to adopt a lot of these best practices and sort of adopt the mindset of a lot of the guests that we have on the show, you're able to just get so much more done, communicate more effectively at work. It can lead to some really great things. So it's really cool to see people embracing that journey, embracing being a beginner and putting themselves out there and learning a lot much faster that way. And then all of a sudden they find themselves in a new position. It's always cool to see that. And it kind of brings us all together in a certain way, because when you have that kind of win in your life that comes sort of from the result of PowerShell, it's hard to not want to pay that forward and be part of that sort of positivity thing that we have in this PowerShell community, which is what fires me up the most personally.
That's it. It is a good community as well. I've seen other communities online and they seem a little bit more hostile, even toxic, to hate to say the word. But I've seen some interactions online and you're a bit like,
yeah.
There's even some communities that don't seem to like PowerShell, I've noticed in Blue Sky. Can't get my head around that. I think it's a fashion thing. I don't know if it's because it's Microsoft or what. I don't know.
I think it's because they just it's
is it jealousy?
Not to call anyone out, ignorance, right? There is an impression that was left of Microsoft of old that is still sitting with people, where they do it like the $M sign for Microsoft, which there's some valid points there, but it's outdated. We have open source PowerShell. We're in the current era where they are genuinely a lot more developer focused. Not saying they're perfect all the time or all their PowerShell modules are the best thing that's ever been created. But yeah, they're kind of living in the old world where like Linux people hate Microsoft generally.
Yeah. It's their tools. I don't understand why people get tribal about things like that.
Yeah. I feel like some of it might not even be intentional. It's kind of like me complaining about end users creating or not creating tickets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just kind of automatic. Oh, wait, no, actually our end users have created tickets for the past 3 years. It's just kind of an automatic complaint. That is, I don't know. But I found that there have been some instances where people are open to some discourse and being shown a new way, but you can't approach that in a combative method.
Yeah, I have seen some people have been won round. There's a few people who've came in, people Justin Grote and all that, they're quite knowledgeable, come in and then maybe open their eyes to a few things and win them round.
Yeah, I've seen sometimes that, and sometimes other people are like, wait, why are you replying to this random tweet? Because they just mentioned PowerShell. They were kind of talking to a friend. And because of the PowerShell feed, I guess it shows it to everybody.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a few. I've had to bite myself a few times. And I've seen, I think, some people, there was one person I had an interaction with, I can't remember their name, and they were saying it, and we ended up saying a few jokey gifs, and it was actually a little bit of a wind-up, basically, and they took it kind of tongue-in-cheek.
Good. Yeah. And I encourage anyone out there, we love PowerShell. I think it's a fantastic solution, but it's not going to be the solution for everyone for every single problem. That's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean PowerShell is going to disappear. It means that, okay, this organization has a lot of experience with X tool, or, there's so many reasons. There's a lot of great tools out there. If anyone tries to tell you that one is the absolute best to conquer them all, that's kind of a red flag. Just be warned. They might be a little biased for some reason or other.
That is true.
Speaking of non-PowerShell tools, what adjacent PowerShell stuff do you deal with? A little bit of Python, a little bit of, I don't know, what?
Markdown. Markdown, yeah. My journey started, I went to university and they taught me Java. I was going to be a Java developer, which didn't happen. I just fell into IT support roles. But that's also one of the things that eventually kind of clicked with PowerShell, with Java being object orientated, and the things with classes and stuff like that. A lot of it seemed really similar. And even if you look at C#, which a lot of PowerShell's built on, not that I've dived that much into that, but a lot of it looks and feels very, very similar. So when I realised that PowerShell returned objects, it was like, ding, I know how to do this. Put a little dot and then put the kind of property name in afterwards. Yay. That was quite cool. But yeah, apart from that, I've played with Python. But again, it's one of these things I was saying about the feedback. Like, I've not really had to use it in anger. my current work, we've got a few people, like traders, that seem to get really into kind of coding for their trading and algorithmic trading and all that. And some of them are playing with Python or is it Anaconda, or a few things and a few packages that come with that. But apart from really helping them like download a package, get by like the proxy because it's telling them they can't download it or whatever, there's not too much I've got into that, unfortunately.
You're in the end user computing space, right? So kind of makes sense. PowerShell is going to be on a lot of those boxes.
Pretty much. There's nothing really, and it's very Wintel orientated. So there's pretty much PowerShell is the tool.
You've learned a lot. Let's go back. Give yourself a piece of advice. You're early into your PowerShell career. You've seen it looks like it can do some cool stuff. You've ran a couple commands. What advice would you give to yourself back in those shoes?
Oh, that's a good question. I would probably try to reach out to the community like the very early days. And I was just kind of running off docs and Stack Overflow and things like that. I don't know how much the community was then, but I should have tried more out. Just got my head around loops earlier. See, once I kind of cracked firing through a for each loop, that was like, now I can do this action to a million things. There'd be little things like that, but I think the most thing that's really accelerated my learning hasn't been I went and learned one particular thing. It probably was getting into the community and seeing what everyone else was saying. Look at this. And I would say that would be the biggest thing. At the moment, I would give my younger self.
I like it. Get in the community. Attend PowerShell Wednesdays every single Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And the PDQ Discord, discord.gg/PDQ. Attend other PowerShell user group meetings that occur at different times. RTP Sug is a great one. Listen to the PowerShell podcast. You're already listening to it. Not much you can do there. Find opportunities. Post in the PowerShell Discord, aka.ms/PS Discord. Another fantastic way. Find opportunities on LinkedIn or Blue Sky or other social medias to connect with people.
The PowerShell, the Blue Sky's got the kind of PowerShell, there's a starter list, and I think it's got quite a lot of good people to follow. That good start, there's in the PowerShell Discord, there's hash resources. I think that's got a lot of things. The PowerShell I found really actually good, that I've told myself to go and find earlier, the PowerShell style guide.
PowerShell style guide, yeah.
Guide. I found that the whole idea, not about just how camel case and all that stuff, but the whole tools and controllers way of building your scripts, where you just have like a function as a tool and then you can build something around that to operate that, but then the tool's more reusable. I kind of, my Java stuff, I did touch on that. We used to do a whole model view controller kind of setup thing, but yeah, I kind of forgotten that over my time away from coding, and kind of seeing that and kind of twigged a few things, and that was a big help as well.
PowerShell style guide. That's cool. That's a really great resource. I love referring people to it. So did you not read, this is going back, people who are kind of current may not be coming up this way, but did you read PowerShell toolmaking in a month of lunches, or the PowerShell toolmaking book?
No, that's the one that slipped by me. I'd done one for PowerShell in a month for lunches. I got that early doors, but I seen that it was a PowerShell toolmaking, or there was another one, but I've never got my paws on that, unfortunately.
No, that's okay, because it does cover that same kind of approach of a controller script and then sort of the helper functions kind of thing that you mentioned there. But yeah, check out the style guide. It's free. Some great content there. Any other resources you recommend people check out? Anything comes to mind? It could be really helpful for a beginner. It could just be cool for someone who wants to have some fun.
I was just trying to think going round. Where I tend to fall back to the old PowerShell Month for Lunches book was quite good. There was a couple of books that I did try to get into. There was PowerShell for sysadmins. Someone got us a copy of that I've had a bit of a look through. There's PowerShell style guide. Sorry, I'm rattling things.
No,
off.
You're good. I want to ask you a question. A slight pivot here.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite module author? All right. I've never asked anyone this question before. Who is your favorite module author? It could be because they're, amazing modules. It could be because you like their style, their pizzazz.
Oh, right. I've got to admit, no PS framework. Fred, I don't want to mispronounce his second name.
Fred Weinman?
Weinman, yeah. I've
Yeah.
actually I've just recently been going through a lot of his stuff. So there was PS framework, and there's a way you can kind of set up parallel little jobs, and that's helping where a couple of things I've got a scripting problem at the moment where a lot of robocopies and basically scripts taking forever, and I wanted to move it into kind of start jobs. And then I seen Fred had done something a little bit more kind of like, it's like a start job, it's almost like parallel, so you can get even more going. I'm having a look at that. But while even looking at his code, I've got to admit, I was looking at it and thinking, actually, that's kind of really nice. And I quite liked a lot of the ways he's approached things. So at the moment, yeah, he's the kind of module maker that I've been kind of geeking over at the moment.
Nice. I'm sure he'll love to hear that. Yeah, I've seen him in the PowerShell scripting channel, the PDQ Discord lately, talking about his tools, and I saw you were there. I'm surprised you're not already an early adopter of PS Framework.
To be honest, I've been using it more. When I first touched it, I used a bit of like there's kind of login parts to it and stuff like that, and I played around with it, and I didn't go that too much further. But recently with the job things, got me interested. Also, there's the PS Framework NuGet, where you can install packages, but you can install packages on remote machines. Modules. Sorry, you can install modules on remote machines, and I've got like jump servers, management servers, and a domain isolated for the internet. So there's a lot of me copying folders into the modules folder and bits like that. But I was testing that out, and I was able to install modules on my jump servers just directly with a command, and that's a massive time saver. So yeah, another one where I was just like, yeah, that's great job by Fred.
Great job by Fred. And I also want to say, it's not only Fred. He's had some amazing contributors. I mean, some really top
some
quality
other names on the PS Framework stuff. No, great work.
I did barely nothing. I don't know what my PR was back in the day, but my little picture is up there.
Yeah, that's the marks there. That's what matters.
That's funny. How'd you know that? Did I mention it before, or did you just see?
No, I've got him. I've seen it. I noticed here because I don't think it's fully under Fred's GitHub. I think
it's under the PowerShell Framework Collective. Yeah, exactly. Kind of like the umbrella corporation for all the modules.
Mm-hmm. So I'd seen it there, and I did notice your picture on it.
And I got to say, huge shout out to Fred. He is one of those people very early on, was very hands-on, helpful with me, showed me how to code, showed me how to move my cursor around so I wasn't a little noob, typing a sentence, clicking around, moving back, hands on the keyboard. You're writing code here. Let's stay there. You need to move your cursor. There's some tricks. Maybe that's for a future episode. We should cover some of those tricks, but
keyboard shortcuts in that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a difference, at least for me. I get distracted so easily. I need to be able to not leave the terminal until X problem is done. Then I can move and do things. But
yeah, I do that. I'll do this, and then I see something else, and then that's me gone.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like the hard problems, though, because if it's challenging enough, you got my full attention. Attention.
It's when you're trying to multitask, doing a lot of wee kind of simple things you normally do, that then I will do the simple mistakes like rebooting my machine when I've meant to reboot a thought I was PS sessioned onto a remote machine. I've done that so many times.
Oh my gosh. Or like you're in a session, but then like it disconnected since the last time you ran it.
It's broken session, and then you're still thinking, I've done it while I've been in calls with other people, like, right, let me just reboot this, and then I go offline. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Top 3 favorite modules. Drop them. What are they?
I probably went on about PS Framework, so I'm going to shove that in there with the PS Framework.no you get. MDGRS, he does, I don't know how you pronounce it, he does the PowerShell run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been playing with that a little bit. I've been actually trying to kind of play around with his menus kind of system in it, and do play it with my own things. But yeah, I've been quite liking that. That's quite nice. Also, PowerShell tips, and it's when you launch up your terminal and you get a little kind of PowerShell tip at the top of it. That's actually quite nice. I've not long put that on. That's part of my profile, but yeah, I've got quite liking that. I would say that was my 3. when there's some, as you say, there's old PS Readline and the old import Excel, which I think one thing I think Doug doesn't show enough. He's like, oh, you can make Excel spreadsheets from a script, but he doesn't, I think, advertise the fact enough that you can create Excel spreadsheets on a machine that doesn't have Office installed. I didn't realise it first when I first started using it, and then I clocked on. I was like, no, this is a game changer. So you could have the module on a Linux box or whatever, and yeah, be still able to create spreadsheets straight off. So yeah, sneak that one as a cheeky fourth.
Wow, you came prepared. I didn't give you much warning on this episode.
There's a lot of
ready.
Scribbles. It's like spiders writing.
You're a note taker, right? So how many journals do you have of notes?
I've got there's also a shelf up here, and it's just full of post-it notes. I would show you because there's some of the PowerShell, like get help. I've got like some PowerShell things that have stuck up, but I've also got a lot of passwords, so I can't show you.
I was gonna make a joke about it, but you really do. That's funny.
Yeah, no, it's probably bad, but yeah, someone ever got a shot of my shelf, then that's it. Into my bank accounts and things.
Oh gosh. Well, Steven, it's great to meet you. This is our first time talking today, right? Or I think we shared a few words a couple of weeks ago on a PowerShell Wednesday?
Yeah, we've spoke a little bit over that, but no, it's been great. Thanks for having me on, and yeah, really nice to meet you as well.
People have loved what you've had to say. They're connecting with you. They're like, wow, this guy's got passion. I dig that. Where can they find you on the World Wide Web? Where are you?
Quite a lot. Spend way too much time on social media. Twitter account was the first one. I'm spending a little bit less time on that. Just the algorithm, I get a lot of noise and non-tech stuff on it now, and it's kind of put me off. Blue Sky is my main place, also because they've opened up like the API to it, so you can use the PS Blue Sky module and things and start tweeting, and that's quite a cool one as well. JeffX. Also LinkedIn, I'm Steven Wight. Sorry. Twitter and Blue Sky, I'm PowerShell Young Team. I don't put my name on it. I didn't. I've been at places before, and people have posted things on social media, and it's came back and bit them. And not that I'm trying to hide myself, but there's a little bit where, I just don't make it an obvious connection. All apart from LinkedIn, but I'm not going to post nonsense up there. You'll find me on LinkedIn as Steven Wight. Also on, I've got my GitHub repo that's under PowerShell Young Team. There's also the blog page. It's a GitHub's page attached to that. If you go in there, you can find an email, the poshyoungteam@hotmail.com, if you ever wanted to drop a mail. But that's where to find me, and reach out and annoy me if you want. It's cool.
Same here. If you are shy out there and you're like, oh gosh, I don't know anything about PowerShell, how could I go to a user group? First of all, that's the perfect time to go. We're happy to introduce you and be there to answer those initial questions you have. But reach out privately. I'm always happy to receive DMs at Andrew Plot Tech. I love meeting with people who are earlier in their community and PowerShell experiences. It really is what fuels me the most. At Andrew Plot Tech on all socials. I usually respond to DMs. They should be open to like non-people I've connected with. But yeah, man, Steven, I love the passion you have for PowerShell. I love the positivity you bring to the community. I love the fact that you've written some really cool stuff. And if you had one message out there for anyone listening who's at that earlier stage of their PowerShell career, what would you say to them? Take it away. You can inspire the masses. Steven, your life has led up to this very moment right here. Take it away.
Find something with PowerShell that will give you a benefit straight off, and then try to run off the feedback of that. The kind of, if it saves you a bit of time and gives you that little bit of a kick, don't just kind of rest on it. Find the next thing. Just kind of keep that little. It's almost like training for something like a marathon. You've got to do that little bit every day and build it up and build that momentum. I would just say try to keep that. It's hard to keep going. There'll be times where it'll go wrong, but no, just, and if that does happen and you kind of get off the track and feel, oh, I've kind of stopped learning PowerShell, just get back on the horse sort of thing and start again. But yeah, that's it. Just keep trying a little bit every day, but find the thing that gives you that little bit of use that's going to benefit for you.
Yeah. No, great points there. Steven, you're wise. You're wise. Everyone out there, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Steven, for joining me today. If you're walking, walk safe, drive safe, all that stuff. And you know what? If you're still listening, first of all, you're a friend of me. You're a friend of Steven. We like the same stuff. Well, I mean, gosh, we certainly are friends. And you know what friends do? They share podcasts with their friends. So share with your coworkers who need to get more into PowerShell. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. We are worldwide, Steven. Everyone's using PowerShell. We got billions of sessions a month. We're having fun out here. Until next week. And you know what? We have PowerShell Wednesdays every single Wednesday. We are on the PDQ Discord having a presentation. I interview a lot of the people who give presentations, and it's just a good opportunity for us to learn. It's kind of shorter form during the day. Hopefully you can take a lunch break and join us sometime and get out there in the community. It's a great first opportunity. I try and keep the topics a little bit more, so they can fit in 30 minutes and appeal to the beginner audience as well. So come on and join us there. Steven, I'll see you around, man. Great meeting you. Look forward to chatting next time.
Same here. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thanks. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast. The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.